நீங்கள் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் TVI.
Welcome to CrossRoads on TVI, a show that showcases the Tamil Canadian community, their issues and their successes. I'm your host, Manjula Salvaraja. Today on our show, we will first meet Roy Ratnaville, the Senior Vice President Sales of CI Investments, about his career, and then speak to a panel about the do's and don'ts of navigating the corporate world. Let's meet Roy. Mr. Ratnaville, again, is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing with CI Investments and currently serves as Regional Sales Manager of Western Canada, overseeing assets of over 20 billion. He has almost 20 years of experience within the financial services industry, and it is a pleasure to have him here. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
My pleasure.
And thanks for having me.
Again, and I think we're going to have you again because we've been having a couple of discussions before the show about your growth and the growth of people that are young professionals in our community. And I think people are anxious to hear about your own journey. So let's start off with, you came here as a young man. Why did you leave Sri Lanka?
Well, as you know, in the mid-'80s, Sri Lanka wasn't a safe place for a Tamil male. And it's true then, it's true now. So around mid-'80s, I was rounded up and thrown in jail for 3 months. And when I came out, my father decided that it's not a country for a guy like me, and there's no future. So upon his request, I decided to leave, and that's why I ended up in Canada, and I'm happy for it.
Now, you were young, and obviously you had left your parents behind there. So, in terms of the authority figures in your life were back in Sri Lanka, what was it like to be here, somewhat alone?
Right. In the interest of full disclosure, I had an uncle here. So I wasn't all alone by myself, but I was 18 years old. But he had his own family. So at the end of the day, I had to look after myself. So to me, coming here from all that, structure that we had, the support system, my mom, dad, it's a security blanket, right? So when I came here, I was by myself. So I was terrified, because I had to look after for myself and I had to make a living. And then I didn't speak English that well, so I had no confidence at all. So that was terrified, and lack of confidence combined was a terrible time to be when you're 18 years old.
Well, it's interesting because I think that a lot of young men in the Canadian Tamil community have actually gone through that, having to come here and sort of start off and sometimes even send money back home to support their family while trying to make a life for themselves. So I'm glad you shared that. I want to take you to something that may be a little bit painful, but I'd really like to share this with our audience. There was an article that you wrote for the Colombo Telegraph, and you had a comment that I'm going to read out that you wrote in that article. Your father was a strong influence in your life, and this is something that you said about him in that article. He died 3 days later on April 21st, 1988. That again must be 3 days after you arrived in Canada. A single bullet killed him at the age of 53. A piece of me gone, my flesh and my blood, my father, myself. How did that, you were here when this happened. How did that incident influence your life?
Right. Once the initial shock was over, a couple of months later, you have to make a decision. Although part of me died with him, you had to grow up. And so I had this feeling after he was gone that he left me with the feeling that somehow if I did well in life, that I could give him the life he always wanted to have. So that became the fire in the belly for me. Really pushed me to get out of the box, gain some confidence, go out there and just try to do the best I can with my limited skill set at the time. But I also learned something. This is my dad taught me when I was a kid. And that's why he's my strong influence, because he always told me that loathing over your imperfection in your lot in life, you gain nothing. There are two types of problems in the world, yours and everybody else's. Nobody cares about yours, so you got to fix your own. So fire in the belly is I wanted to prove it to him, even though he's not around, that I can somehow make a living And then two, I never ever blamed anything that happened to me on anyone else except me taking the responsibility for it. So that's how I thought I should run my life. That's how I run it today, and I'm happy for it.
Amazing. So you have this incident and his influence that was a driver for you in your life in the earlier stages. What drives you now? I mean, you have a phenomenal career, but what is it that drives you every day to do what you do and to excel at it?
In one word, I would say paranoid. I'm paranoid of losing everything I made in the 20 years. So what I try to do is that I keep raising the bar, keep pushing hard. So I run a staff of 30 people. I never ever show up to work late. I'm always the first guy in, last guy out. And I don't have to do that, but that drives me. You know, I want to live by an example to all my staff so they understand that the boss is in the office before anyone else, and I am the last one to leave. I work as hard as anyone else in the office, if not harder, and only because I'm afraid to lose everything I made. And that sounds a little irrational, but that keeps me, keep me grounded and keeps me work hard every day.
Interesting. So perhaps we can talk about what you do. What does an SVP of sales at CI do?
Okay. I'm in the investment business, as you know, and my job is to run a department of sales professionals of 30 of them, and combined assets of over $20 billion. Now the company runs about $100 billion. Part of it is institutionals, part of it is retail. I don't want to get into details because that's not what we're here for, but the retail side of the business is about 70 billion. So essentially I run almost 1/3 of the assets of the company, which is about $20 billion, spread across between all the way from Winnipeg to Victoria, BC, and all the territories, even part into Kenora and Dryden, Ontario. So I'm actually coming into your part of the world too. So I have 30 staff, half of them are sales and marketing, and the other half is VP of sales. And they report to me, and I run sales, and buck stops here. I have to grow the business every year, and if it doesn't grow, I have to give the reasons why. So it's a grind. It's an ongoing 24/7, non-stop, live by your BlackBerry, fly around, make pitches, talk to investors, and bring new money in the door. That's my job. And then I report to the CEO of the firm. So if anything breaks down in the channel, I am the guy in charge of that. So it comes with certain responsibilities, but I have a great team, so I don't take credit for all of it. But my job is to keep the team running effectively and efficiently on a day-to-day basis.
How did you get started in the financial services industry?
Just pure luck.
Really?
Yeah, I was 18 years old, and like I said, I had to make a living, meaning I had to go get a job. So I worked in different places, and finally I got into this firm called CI Investments as a mailroom clerk. That's the job I got first. And this is, I believe in inspiring people. There's one gentleman who came into the mailroom one day, and for some reason he took a shine to me. And he, from that day on, became my surrogate father, trainer, coach, and guess what? He's the CEO of the firm. And so he was himself struggling sales guy at the time. He taught me the business, encouraged me to learn about the business, and that's how I did it. Went through everything, mailroom, administration, client services, sales desk, VP of sales, and then entirely running the piece of the business. So it was luck at first, and the rest is, as they say, history. You just have to work hard and prove yourself.
So this is a very busy role. You talk about a lot of travel, a lot of responsibility. How has the family structure support, how has that been, how does that help you do what you do?
Yeah, you need to have a strong family support. I used to live in Toronto. I had an opportunity to move out to the West, and I took it. And luckily I have a wife who's on the same page with me in terms of this thing, and she's a driven person herself. And we thought it would be great for us to take a shot at it and see what happens. And I do travel a lot. I'm home only maybe one week out of a month, and she runs the house when I'm away. She runs the house when I'm home, and
she basically runs things.
I'm so fortunate to have my wife, because you cannot do this job unless you have a strong partner, or parents who support it. If you're not married or not in a relationship. In my case, she has been my driving force in terms of keeping me not worry about stuff at home while I'm away. Because even when I'm home sometimes, I don't like to do anything because I'm so tired. I get home, I just want to be left alone, and she's been tremendous. So I always say to all my staff, they said, the one thing that you need to understand in this business, if you're traveling, you need to have a family that understands what you do for a living. And if you don't have that support, this doesn't work. Because a lot of marriages fail apart as a result of husband or wife not being around to share the burden of the household chores. And so I'm thrilled to have Sue in my life, and to be able to deal with all that pressure when I'm not around.
So I've got a question for you, and I'm sure that some of our viewers would care to know. What do you look for in young people that you hire?
Good attitude. Period. Because I hire people for attitude and train them for skill. Because sometimes the reverse is good. If you have a good attitude and great skill sets, that's a lethal combo. Often I find the young people who come in with great degrees, MBAs, CFAs, all that is great to have in the business, but terrible attitude. And as a result, I don't end up hiring them. It is better to hire someone and program the way that you want it to be programmed, as opposed to having somebody come in pre-programmed. It's hard to break that thing down. I know it sounds pretty simple, but I find, maybe it's a generational difference too. It's not what we're going to talk about today, but one of my pet peeves is that I find people coming with this sense of entitlement of success. Success is not an entitlement. Okay, you work for it, you earn it. You earn your stripes, you try to do a job, you learn it, perfect it, do what the company asks you to do. And a lot of people fight it. And one of the reasons that we let people go is that they are not in the same program as what the company is trying to do. They break ranks, they try to do things that the company is not trying to do. Essentially, attitude is what I look for.
You really think that's a generational thing, Rowan?
I think it is.
Maybe we will explore this in the next 2 segments.
Sure.
Because I think that there's something to be discussed about in there. So one last question before we go to a break. What do you like about being in this space? What do you like about being in this role?
There's too many to state, but I would say it's financially rewarding and emotionally satisfying. I love being able to get in front of a group of audience and convince them why they should be investing money with us. So to me, that's the kill. I get a high on getting in front of 100 random people on a stage and be able to convince them why they should be putting their hard-earned money with my firm. So you got to earn their trust, then you have to let them know that we know what we are doing in terms of managing their money. And for me, that's so rewarding. It's funny, initially when I got into the business, I'm a shy guy by nature, so I had to break out of that and being able to in front of the people. Now you can shut me up. I want to talk all the time. That's what my wife says all the time. So that's what I like about it. It's just the feeling of the unknown when you get in front of people and be able to convince them. And I just think it's a tremendous way to make a living.
Well, I think you've certainly convinced us of a couple of things here, and I think you'll continue to do so because you're going to stick around for the panel discussion we're having. I think this will be a really hot one. I've definitely had a couple of people ask me for this, and that's why we're doing it. So stick around. Folks, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about navigating the corporate world. We have 2 other panelists who have phenomenal bios themselves. Stay with us. You're watching CrossRoads on TVI with Manjula Salvaraja. So we have had a couple of people that have written in that were interested in seeing us do a panel on professional growth, on sort of breaking past the different ceilings that you find in the corporate world, and we decided to do just that. So we've got a power panel here. I'm very excited to introduce them, and they're going to talk about attitudes, habits, and strategies that could lead to success in the corporate world and ones that could hold you back. So let's meet our panel. First of all, we have Bahi Kandavel, who's currently a trader with Cobalt Capital Management, a Houston-based energy trading firm. He has worked with several trading and hedge fund companies, led a team of power traders at Jump Trading, and owned his own trading firm, Vel Energy. Sandra Sabaratnam is a health informatics, I knew I was going to pronounce that wrong, you can correct me later, consultant at Global Village Consulting and the chair of the Canadian Tamil Alumni Association, where she works with a number of emerging professionals on challenges and opportunities that they find in their careers. Ratnavel, we just had the pleasure of meeting. He's the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing with CI Investments. And he's joining our panel and completes our panel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you know what, I'm going to start off with perhaps what I would call a tough question. There are things that I hear that young professionals who may be just starting off in their career or entering the corporate world do that are self-defeating, things that kind of hold them back. Do you see them? What do you think they are? Bahi?
I mean, I think that touching on Roy's point earlier, I think that there is this sense of entitlement. So I think that there's a lot of young people entering the workforce who maybe expect to be doing things that are, that they won't get a chance to do until after putting in their dues. So I think unrealistic expectations is sort of one of the things that I've observed with the younger generation.
Sandra?
Well, I would just want to elaborate a little bit more on that point, because when we graduate from university, or I should say when we start university, we go to university with the idea that we're going to get our degree and then we're going to land that dream job, right? Like that's our ticket. And so upon graduating, you have that expectation. And so a lot of newly graduates, they don't really reflect and think about what you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's important to acknowledge that I might not have the answers and the questions to everything, and then go out and network, meet other people, and really, connect with people that can help you get to where you need to be.
Okay. Roy, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's hardly that always an entitlement issue. That's one thing that we talked about earlier. But another thing I find is that people have to distinguish between job and career. If you want a job, you'll get a job. You go in 9 to 5, punch in, punch out, go home, you're done. Career never ends. Career doesn't go by the clock. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to do after-hour work. You have to understand what's up for next day. For an example, in my case, I work every Sundays, not full day, 2 to 3 hours a day. I always believe that success leaves clues. So I looked at people who are successful in their business and I asked them this question: what do you do Monday to Friday? And the guy says, no, I do Sunday to Friday. Mm-hmm. So when you prepare yourself on a Sunday for the week, the Monday morning, you're not running around scrambling. So that's the difference between career and job. And I think when I talk to young audiences, I always say, realize what you want to do. Do you want a job or you want a career? Because most of the time, like you said, maybe you're a small percentage of the population when they're 5 or 6 years old, they know what they want to be, mm-hmm. right? And they're focused and they get it done. And I think the rest of us kind of fall into positions in life. Mm-hmm. It just happens. So when it happens, if it becomes a job, you're fine. If it's a career, then you have to be passionate about it. For example, there's Bahi, owns his own trading company, works in the field, and you in the healthcare department, in the sector, mm-hmm. It's a passion. You like what you do and it becomes a career, and I think it reflects on people. Mm-hmm. And so, sorry, it's a long-winded answer for that, but I think that's what I would say.
So let me take it down to maybe a bit more specifics, because I know certainly just from your bios that you've both worked with youth organizations in the Canadian Tamil community. So let's take it to young professionals in the Canadian Tamil community. Do you think that they are doing things that hold them back? Be it networking or education, what do you think these are?
So I guess I'll start. So what I've noticed specifically, because within the Tamil culture, we are taught to live a very modest lifestyle. And when we go out, to not really talk or speak about the achievements that you've had because that's considered bragging, or at least that's how my family, we were kind of brought up. But in the Western culture, in order to be successful, when you go into networking situations, you need to speak about what you've done, right? People need to know what you've achieved in order for you to continue to be successful, right? So what I've noticed, especially with a number of Tamil networking events that I've been to, a lot of people are interested in knowing what I've done, but they don't really flip back and tell me about what they've achieved and how collaboratively, like how both of us can potentially work together, or like what opportunities they've experienced. So that's what I've noticed.
Absolutely. I just, expand on that. I think that it is sort of a kind of a pervasive problem in our community, where I think a lot of the youth, they have this belief that if they just kind of put their head down and work hard, that's going to lead to success. But, I think in the corporate world, it's not just about, working hard and doing well, but actually, networking and sort of putting yourself out there, selling yourself, like you're a product at the end of the day. And so I think in our community that really isn't emphasized. And so when people are in the corporate world, I feel like there's definitely things that they can do in terms of improving their image, in terms of networking, and really sort of showcasing their achievements, which I think our community doesn't, like, it sort of seems to be a problem amongst our youth. That's what I've observed.
Mm-hmm. Roy, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I would add one to that is saying taking risk. I mean, you look at our community, we crossed many oceans. The first generation, right, crossed many oceans after the political issues in Sri Lanka, came here and built a tremendous life for their kids. That's taking a lot of risk. To an unknown land, unknown culture, language issues. They came, they worked hard, and built the first layer of foundation. What I see now is those kids or those first generation immigrants, they don't want to take risk. They want to be in the nest that the parents built, and they don't want to leave their friends and family. I understand, I sympathize with it, but if you want to be successful, sometimes you got to go after it. Mm-hmm. If you look at Western Canada, and I come here to recruit all the time, and I talk to not just young people in our community, but of all stripes. And the one thing I find specifically to our community is that they want to do the job and have the career, but under their own conditions. It doesn't happen that way. I mean, you lived in Chicago, you travel. Right, yeah, mm-hmm. You were just telling me just before the show, mm-hmm. you're in Western Canada from time to time, or now living there for a while. I've been there for 15 years, and the decision was made in 5 minutes. In 1997, I just realized I cannot get what I want unless I leave and go get it on my own. And so I would say, in addition to everything that our panel just said, take risk, leave.
And I would totally agree with that, because I think with first generation Canadians, they had no choice, right? There were struggles in the 1980s, right? They had no choice to really build a future for their families, so they were forced to take that risk. But for second generation Canadians like ourselves, we live in Canada, our parents have put us in a very nice, comfortable lifestyle that the real pressure or the need to take that risk is not there anymore.
So you think that's interesting that you say that perhaps we don't have those pressures
mm-hmm.
on us. Do you think that, Bahi? I mean, you've taken risks in your life that have actually paid off really well for you.
Absolutely.
But do you feel that you see a lot more of that out there?
I don't. I mean, I think part of it is it is a cultural thing. I think we have been sort of raised a certain way, and I think we are risk averse. Our culture is risk averse, and so I feel like I would definitely encourage young people to take risks in their career, to take positions that may not make sense initially, but really feel right. And I think that it's very easy to sort of kind of do things in a way that seem like they make sense, that sort of the next step. But in my case, I left sort of a comfortable job on Bay Street that everyone said, why would you leave that job? And I left it for a risky position in the U.S. So I moved to the U.S. not knowing anyone and kind of had to start all over again. And I think that was really a kind of a big move that sort of helped my career and sort of helped a lot of my personal growth. Mm-hmm. So I would really encourage young people who are maybe on the fence about some kind of decision that will take them outside of their comfort zone. I think that's really where progress gets made, when people push and go outside of what they're comfortable with, and that's
What pushed you to make that decision?
In my case, I sort of was in a role where I got to try a lot of different things, and what I found really excited me was actually at the hedge fund, being at a hedge fund, taking on risk, trading, and sort of, in a sense, putting money where my mouth is. And I wanted to be at a place where I could sort of, put myself to that test. And it meant leaving a relatively comfortable job on Bay Street to go to this unknown firm in Washington, D.C. And for me, it was like, that is what felt right. It meant taking a pay cut. It meant, going to the city, new country, didn't know anybody.
Expensive city.
Absolutely. But it just felt right for me at the time. And I think that, you really have to listen to your inner voice. That's what I believe.
Yeah. I'd love to actually hear about that. It's great to hear a story of a risk that you took. I mean, Sandra, is there something that you've done in the last while?
Well, I guess it would be my move to Calgary. So I've been there. It was supposed to be just a short 3-month project, and now it's been a year and might be 2 years, who knows. And so the challenge there, I was facing similar issues where I knew that the role that I had in Toronto, I would only progress at a certain rate. And this opportunity came up in Calgary, and it was a move that would accelerate my career, and I knew I wouldn't get it in Toronto. So I took the chance. It was a new city, don't have family there, and I'm very close to my family. So it was a risk that I took, but I knew that the reward at the end of it would be better. Mm-hmm. So I find that that's, again, something that a lot of young professionals that I greatly mention and encourage, that if there's an opportunity out there, to just go ahead and take it, right? And don't be so risk averse. And I find, especially with the Tamil community, there's a generally accepted schedule events, life events that happen, right? And being a female, I do feel the pressure a little bit more so, and being at that age. And so I do feel that there are, I would say, a little bit more challenges for a female within the Tamil community to really to take these risks and to further your career.
You make a good point that I think being a woman, the schedule, the so-called quote-unquote
I'm late,
schedule.
by the way, I'm late.
But the schedule changes too, because there's this pressure perhaps from family, from yourself, who knows, the fertility clock everyone keeps talking about, So how do you react to all of that? Or how are your colleagues and even other female members of the Canadian Tamil Alumni Association, what are the women saying?
From the Tamil, I'm lucky because my professional group that I interact with at work I have a network of very strong women. And so I call them my surrogate mothers, and they really have advised me and have mentored me throughout this path. But within the Tamil community, they are, I would say, a little bit more so, they have more pressure, and they are following the pressure. So they're making choices that are impacting their career to not really move forward, which is unfortunate. But we've all got various pressures, right? And each individual will take them differently, right? So
interesting. Yeah. So let's look at the other end of this now. We just talked about things that were self-defeating habits. Let's talk about things that are actually predictors of success. Mm-hmm. So when you meet, again, be it through the different organizations you work with or your own roles, young professionals, what are things that you see that makes you think, this person's going to go far, or needs to do this to go far?
I would say, if I give somebody an instruction to do something, I always tell my staff, act and behave and dress for the career you want, not for the job you have.
Yep.
So I think that's the first rule in success. One of the first rules in success. There are many. Again, there's so many ways to skin a cat, and there's so many different things you can do. I see that as a problem. And I see that as a problem with communities, not just us, across the country. I said generational issue, I have seen people come to the office and sit at the desk and listen to their iPod music while they're working. It drives me absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. I love music. I listen to music all the time. It's a place of work. We are trying to produce value from the time you get in, from the time you leave. I don't care what kind of background you came in. Oh, at school we used to do that when I did my essays. No, you're in a work environment. Act and behave like for the career that you want to have, not for the job you have. That's a very pretty strong opinion. I live by it all the time, and I make sure that I don't waver from it. And everybody knows that in the office, and I say that to all the people when I talk to them.
I mean, I just wanted to interject because I think it really does depend on the industry, right? Like, I think what's important, what you said, I felt was important, was about sort of imagining or envisioning success and what that takes in your particular industry. Now, I mean, just the obvious example that came to mind is like the tech industry, where it's really about creative thought and people put on headsets. You know, you've seen the
or a PR agency,
exactly,
yeah.
right? So, I mean, but I think what I feel like sort of generalizes is when I see somebody, I think you know, has the indicators of success. It's somebody who has that vision, like they can really imagine themselves sort of making it, and they have that hunger, that drive to emulate those indicators of success, to really sort of mold themselves into what it takes to be a success in that industry. So obviously it will vary from industry to industry, but somebody who has that awareness, who's not just sort of going through the motions, but who's actually analyzing, kind of taking a look at the bigger picture and working on themselves.
So has a vision.
Right.
And another thing is realizing that a job, like you said, like you can either have a job or a career. And if you want a career, you have to take your career into your own hands. You're responsible and accountable for the decisions that you make. So I meet a lot of young professionals that complain and whine, oh, well, I wasn't given this opportunity, wasn't handed to me. And I keep on saying, stop talking. If you want it, go after it, right? It's you are responsible for where you are today. So it's about realizing that.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, maybe I should say, in the financial industry, don't wear headsets.
Yeah.
And more importantly, this is true for any industry. Understand what's important to the boss, right? If you disagree with the person, you shouldn't be there, right? If you're going to fight with the boss every day on every single issue, then you obviously are on the same page with the organization. Leave. It's like you said, take your career in your own hand. Whether he's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. He's the boss or she's the boss. Just do what's important to the boss and add value. Be a solution, not a problem. That's where you get noticed. You know, again, don't complain. I'm 100% with you on that. How'd you get such an agreeable group? I would say it's just a simple rule in life. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Just do what the boss wants you to do, right? And if you don't like it, then obviously this is not the place for you.
So let me, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your own sort of habits. Is there something that you do that you do continuously, something that you do perhaps every year or every week or every month that you think has worked wonders for you? I know that's a tough one.
That's a tough question. Yeah, I mean, in my case, I think that I've been really sort of good about reading up about people who've made it, reading up about success stories and trying to figure out what they've done right and trying to incorporate those strategies in my own life, in my own career. So looking for role models. I think it's really important to find a good mentor, somebody who can help guide your career. I think that's tremendously.
And I'm guessing that you've
at various stages in my career, I've looked up to certain people and sort of used them as role models or mentors to sort of help guide my career.
Sandra?
Every so often, I would say 6 months to a year, I just reflect about where I am in life. Am I happy? Career-wise, where do I want to be? And then I make sure that I communicate that to other people. Because as soon as I talk and mention that I want to do this in a year, I'm going to know that person's going to hold me accountable. There's specific people that I go to for that. And so I'll make sure that I will work towards whatever goal it is.
Interesting. Do you have mentors as well?
Absolutely. Mentors is a key to where I am today.
Okay. Roy?
Well, I think people got to understand that, making mistakes shouldn't be a source of shame. Once you understand the human condition that is imperfections of human beings, then you have to understand that understanding and appreciating the mistakes you learned or made should be a source of pride. And I've always made sure that whenever I screw up or make a mistake, I'm the first one to admit it to the CEO, to the staff. So you lead by example. And then I ask people every year, at the end of the year when we do reviews, I ask my staff, now tell me, what should I be doing right? What am I not doing right? Am I missing something? So it's a self-check and understanding that at the end of the day, making mistakes is okay, but understanding you make mistakes and fixing them should be a source of pride. And that actually, I think it inspires people around you. And then at the end of the day, you're just there as a team to work together for one cause. I think people got to understand that even if I made a mistake, it's okay. Just admit it and move on.
I think that dovetails nicely with our point about risk, right?
Right.
You shouldn't be afraid of taking risk because every failure is a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I'm going to hold you on that thought for a bit because we're actually going to touch on some of those things in the second segment. Let's take a break now. You are watching Crossroads on TVI, and I did want to mention that if you have questions for our panel, you can certainly call us. We are at 416-623-8100. You're watching Crossroads on TVI with Manjula Salvaraja. Welcome back to Crossroads on TVI with Manjula Salvaraja. We are talking about the do's and don'ts of succeeding in the corporate world. And we have Ratnavel, Sandra Sabaratnam, and Bahi Kandavel with us. So let's keep going on this. One of the questions that I heard from some of the young professionals that I was talking to before is a challenge that they run into. They're in an organization, don't feel like they're moving up at the pace that they would like to. Things are not happening at the pace that they'd like to. What do? Roy, I'll start with you.
I say be patient.
You'll say wait it out?
Well, it depends. And if the business is not growing, no one's moving up. So it's irrational to think that somehow you're going to get moved up because, for whatever reason you think you did my 3-year or whatever, right? So it happens in our business a lot. Markets go down and up. When the markets go down, things don't move, meaning people don't move internally. So my advice is try to be patient, but if you think for some reason you're not being given a fair shot at the chance to move up, then the decision you have to make is either to find out why that you're not moving up, or maybe that's not the place for you. So, generally I tell people the first year you learn the job, second year you perfect the job, third year look for opportunities to move up and keep repeating that 3-year plan every 3 years, right? That's how you break through the glass ceiling. So if it doesn't happen, be patient, analyze the situation if the business is growing. If it's for some reason you think it's a conspiracy against you, then you know the answer to that is. And again, it's going back to what Sandra said, you control your destiny. Nobody cares about someone's complaint at the end of the day. It's a harsh reality in an organization. If you become the whiner in the organization, you'll stay there.
So Sandra, I'll take that a step further. When do you think it is time to leave an organization?
So I would agree with Roy, right? You do need to be patient, but at the same time, you have to be proactive. Like I've done this personally a number of times where I've felt that, okay, I've been in this role for a certain amount of months, I've learned and have done as much as I can within the role, and it's time for me to move on. However, again, opportunities weren't readily available. So what I've done is I've actually come up with a plan. Okay, this is what I'm looking to achieve next. Be proactive about it, put together a plan, share it with your boss, and see if there are opportunities within the company to either, move up within a role, and if not, maybe you can job shadow. Maybe there's a volunteer opportunity that you can, there's always a way.
Absolutely. I mean, just building on that, I think it's really important, as I said earlier, to have mentors, to have people within the company who are at a relatively senior level that you can talk to and sort of, share your frustrations with and try to get some feedback. I mean, you don't always need to go to your boss. So I think it's really important to not just sort of take the situation as it is and accept it. I think it's very important to kind of get multiple perspectives. And so it's very important to have coffee meetings and do lunches with different people in the company to sort of get a sense as to, is this a unique problem that you're facing, or is this company wide? And I think it really helps to get that perspective in sort of deciding whether it's time to leave and seek other opportunities.
Right.
It's interesting. There was I think that whole thing you said about meeting with people.
Yeah.
Having lunch and assessing the situation.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people do that.
Absolutely.
I had a person that I pre-interviewed who couldn't be here on the panel who said it amazes them that people network when they're looking for a job, but never in between. They never network to find out, am I being paid the right amount? what's going on? What else? What are other departments doing? Should I be doing more in my role? But they just wait till, okay, now it's the third year, now I'll start networking again. And there shouldn't be that pause.
Right. I mean, if I can share a personal story, I've been with CI for 23 years, okay? So in 1994, the gentleman who, the surrogate father I call it, my coach, my everything, in 1994 said, I was walking by, he says, come to my office. I didn't even sit down. He ripped me to shreds. And I still remember what he said. You have outgrown the company. It's time for you to leave. And it was a harsh reality. So the next day, I quit. And so I left CI for 2 years and did nothing. I just went back to school, try to, get my skills sharpened up a little more. And then in 97, when I graduated out of school, randomly he called me up, and said, you know what, let's go for lunch. But I kept in touch with him throughout the time. This is part of networking. Still, I networked the industry. I had friends in it, so I just go and say what's going on. And then he says, look, I want you to come back. So there's and I'm not saying this is going to be the case for everybody, but just personally speaking, I realized he was right. That I had a bad attitude, had a chip on the shoulder, walking around like everybody's against me. They didn't need me, right? So it was the right coaching. He said, get out of the business. And so you fast forward 15 years later, going back, here I am, where I am. It's because of the fact that at some point you got to realize that you're just going the wrong way. And like I said, I go back to this all the time. Companies do not care about your individual problems. They're there to work as a group, and you better add value, be part of the solution. And if you're not, leave.
So let me take that actually one step further. And I know we might be running out of time, but I know I have to ask you this, because it's the Canadian Tamil community and everyone talks about education. Do you really need to rack up the degrees behind your name?
No, absolutely not. I think that in my case, I really pursued education extensively, but having spent 10, 11 years in the financial industry, I really don't think it's a requirement at all. I think that it in some cases opens doors for you, but I really don't think it's, in fact, I think our tendency as a community is to overemphasize education and to lean too heavily on it, thinking that, if I get my MBA, if only I do my CFA, then all of a sudden all these opportunities are going to open up for me. And in some cases that's true, but by and large you really have to rely on yourself, your own ability to excel in your work and to network and I think all those other things there's a tendency to kind of neglect those other things or downplay those other things if you overemphasize education. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
Absolutely. Work experience speaks louder than having those letters behind your name. I've met a number of my friends who recently finished or are going through the MBA process, and some of them that have graduated are still where they started with, yet with a $100,000 debt, right? So,
okay. So that is one of the things that you have to think about. So the other question that I had was with regards to, this is an interesting one, because there's a lot of young professionals that I know, which I think is commendable. They volunteer, they sit on boards. Do you think that adds anything to their career?
Well, I can only speak for myself. It doesn't. But I'm not saying that's not true in the other industries. Maybe other companies look for sort of that type of individuals who care about the communities and all that stuff. It's not to say people in financial industries don't care about people. It's just that I find that sometimes people push the agenda by saying, oh, I'm a board of some non-profitable organization. That's great. I'm looking for someone, how does that help me in the business that I'm running? And then I do the math on it, that it doesn't. So just going back to same with the degrees, I mean, it's good to have it. I mean, I think it tells people you have the discipline to follow a certain curriculum in school and learn it and do the homework. It's tough, right? I mean, trying to get an MBA, it's not easy, but it's a dime a dozen. Like a lot of them are MBAs. Same with CFAs. I mean, I am partway through. It's a gold standard in our business, but CFA doesn't make you a business smart person. It just shows you that smart academically, and it's right in our communities and there's overemphasis on it. But I think it's good to have it. I don't discourage people from going to school and learning a skill set, but it is not going to guarantee you success.
So last question for all of you. I'll start with Bahi. If you had a young professional that I put in front of you that is just starting out, first job, is there a piece of advice that you would give them?
I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. Find a good mentor and work hard, and that would be it, basically.
Find a good mentor, work hard. That's a good start, Sandra.
I would say that don't be prepared. Don't expect to get the job of your dreams from day one. Understand that you're going to have to start at the ground up and work your way through it.
Great, Roy.
Okay, it's going back to what Bahi said. You ask successful people, what made you successful? There's two things comes out. Passion. They have a passion for whatever the business they are in, whether it's energy trading or whether it's sales and marketing, whether it's healthcare industry, being consultant. You must have a passion for what you do. Then there's a process. The process has to be there in the sense that you have to understand that life isn't going to happen to you in the first year, the second year, or even the 10th year. It's a process, a long, drawn-out process. So I would say have a passion for whatever you're going to do and do it right and have a process.
Great. Well, thank you all. I'm sure that we are going to be asked to bring you on again, and I know you're all from different vicinities. We'll figure out a way to do that. I'm sure the technology is there to do that. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Great
Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having us.
Great. Well, if we have any questions that you'd like to send in, I can certainly forward it on, because I know that the time that we had with them was slightly short. But I'm really happy that we did do this panel. As we roll up, I want to talk about a little story that we did a couple of months ago. This spring, we interviewed a cousin and a close friend of Mayuran Shanmugavadivel. He was a 23-year-old gentleman who was suffering from leukemia and needed a bone marrow donation. We are sad to pass on the news that Mayuran lost his battle with leukemia late August. The team at CrossRoads would like to extend our thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. We thank him and his family for bravely helping to spread the message about the underrepresentation of South Asians in the bone marrow registry. In his memory, we would like to ask you, our viewers, to consider joining the bone marrow registry. It just takes a few minutes. I've done it. It takes no time, and it can save a life. For more information, please call OneMatch at 1-888-236-6283. Thank you for joining us today. You've been watching Crossroads on TVI with Manjula Salvaraja.
தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.